Hello and welcome to EduCurious. Our guest today is Leanne Thrift, and she is a freshman high school counselor. She is always in the community doing all kinds of work with students, parents, community workers. So I see her out and about all the time. She's wonderful. So welcome to the show, Leanne. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for asking. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to learn more about you. I just see you on the professional side, getting stuff done, moving and shaking, and you've been an integral part of our local charter school system. So I want to hear about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Gosh, did we go all the way back to going to college?
However far back you want to go.
So I actually started out wanting to be a veterinarian. So I went to University of Florida and I figured out pretty quick that I was pretty much a small town girl going to a really big school that I wasn't quite ready, I think, socially to get out there and go. So I did have a love for science. I came back home. I finished up at community college and then decided I think I want to teach. So I finished my bachelor's at that time Warner Southern and now Warner University, and I went into teaching in 1997. So I've been in education for 20. I'm finished up 28 years. So I worked as a science teacher for 10 years, and then we had the opportunity to open a middle school in our charter system. And so a group of us just had a vision of something a little different, something a little less traditional, something that students wanted to show up every day and staff wanted to show up every day, not just to learn, but just to feel a community that was welcoming, that then in turn help students learn. And so we opened a very successful middle school. I was there as a science teacher for several years, and then I went right on into going to school for school counseling. I love my students and I love the classroom and I love teaching, but I really held on to the relationships that I built with students, short term, long term, just kind of walking them through education, through the things they love. And that kind of got me. And then so while I was at that school, I went ahead and got my master's, and then I moved right into the counselor position. There was a change of administration, moved right on in. Loved it. And I've been doing it ever since. I was there for several years and then had the opportunity to go work at the high school as the freshman counselor. And it was really a very natural move for me. Being in middle school, all of the years of teaching and school counseling, ninth grade was my jam. I loved it. And it was really cool because at that time I got to move up with my students. So I knew all of them for like 2 to 3 years. And I don't know, I love everything about it. It was the best move I made in my educational career.
So what have you noticed going from middle school to high school? What did you feel like parents could really benefit from or students could benefit from going from that kind of like you're still getting taken care of to like you're more on your own?
So parents are very nervous for good reason. I mean, they're going from a smaller school to a school of 1,200 students. And so we do have a lot of parents with a lot of questions, and I do love that. We have students that are very nervous. I already have students emailing me already that are in 8th grade coming up to us from 9th grade. I think the biggest thing is the number of students, number one. That's very intimidating for them, but they have been very well taken care of in middle school. And so they're going from a school of 600 and something to a freshman class of 425. So their class is just a little bit smaller than their last school was. So things that I notice, communication is really hard for them. So they really form those bonds with those middle school teachers. And so now they have 7 new teachers in larger classes, more students, and helping them communicate with their teacher face to face, not just through social, through our platform of Schoology or email. I think that's probably the biggest thing, like advocating and communicating for themselves.
When you're offering guidance to a freshman coming new on campus, what are some of the big features that a high school has that you want to make sure that they are exposed to as far as either clubs or academic groups or extracurriculars? What do you tell them about high school and how to get plugged in?
I make a point to go into, I do it through English classes right at the beginning of the year because there's so many things from the big things, such as academic and graduation requirements, all the way down to the little things of like, hey, Miss Thrift, who do I go to ask about a computer? It's like all of those little things. So I do go in, I really spend time with them right at the beginning of knowing where to go for what, because that's really intimidating. Again, a big school, there's a lot of staff. But spending that time to look ahead over those 4 years, what do we need to accomplish? What is your end goal? And a lot of them don't know yet. So investigating that end goal, what do we think we want? And then planning out all those little things in those 4 years, such as our academic plan, being a part of clubs and understanding what colleges and universities are looking for at the end of those 4 years. So, of course, you mentioned clubs. We want those community service hours. So, I'm introducing all of those little things that we need to build on over the next 4 years, right at the very beginning of their ninth grade year.
And what are some ways that you help them figure out what they might be good at or what they might want that they don't even know about yet?
We have a program called Xello. It's this. A lot of the state of Florida are using it. I love it because it helps students. There's a bunch of different inventories, and they can look at what their interests are and then look at their strengths. And it kind of meshes everything together and it spits out a whole list of things, occupations, careers that they can investigate, anything from going right out into the workforce to possibly going to trade school or going to college and university. It really is a very good tool at the moment for them to begin looking. And as we move through those 4 years, there's different things built into that we can investigate because things do change. They start out, hey, I want to do this. And then they end up their senior year saying, I'm going to college to do this. So it's nice because it does change with them and they can take those inventories multiple times.
So, for someone who might not be in the education world, is it similar to like an Enneagram or Myers Briggs or personality test, the Zello?
It's like a personality test. It's a bunch of questions that ask them basically, what do you love to do? And then like, what are you really good at? And then from those inventories that puts it together. And it goes even like later on. So if you want to be a veterinarian, like you click on that and it tells you colleges in Florida, colleges outside of Florida. How much does it take to go to college? What's the population like in that college? It's a really very good tool.
What are some of the biggest worries that you're seeing from those freshmen as they're navigating all the unknown?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that communication factor. I think just the past few years, we've definitely had some challenges, but it's really face to face conversations are really hard for students these days, and they're very necessary in high school. Everybody wants to kind of hide behind that phone and text or hide behind their Schoology and message, but it really does. Our high school offers like an extra time 3 times a week where they get to go to any teacher they want for help or to retake tests. It's hard for them to go have those conversations of like, hey, I really need to retake this test. What's the best day for me to come? That communication is really hard for them. And it's something we really do work on, organizing that 3 periods of time where they need to go have those conversations with those teachers. And organization. I think organization is always a tough one for ninth graders. That's nothing new, but it's definitely always a tough one.
You help them get organized or teach them strategies? Where can they learn that skill of organization?
So we do look at some of them like planners that are tangible and are right in front of them. Some of them they want to do the digital. So we look at that. We look at Schoology has somewhat of a planner built into it, but a lot of times we are sitting at my desk and we are planning out those, we call them an academic H2H time. And what is that going to look like this week? What questions are we going to ask? Like helping them with the wording of when you go to this teacher, like, What are we going to say? So we really plan that out on paper. And then they have this little, I call it a plan of action, and they go to those teachers. And I mean, I feel like it works pretty well, especially for those that don't love to talk.
What are you most excited about? Some of the stuff that's coming up that directly impacts your career, your job area within high school?
I really am excited that our high school has expanded our career academies. It's moving in a really great direction. So I'm very excited about that. Our freshmen will get, some of them are 4-year academies and they'll get to take part in those if they choose. Others are moving into 10th grade, but kind of looking at those courses that would lead them up to that.
How do you get that connection, especially like with schools and community? Because that's vital.
We do a couple different things. We definitely reach out to the middle schools and ask if we can come on campus. We bring students to talk about some of the electives and career academies they're in. We have an IB program at our school, so we have students come and talk about that. We do that prior to students applying so that they kind of know, like, hey, what do I think I want to do? In addition, we have one of the middle school hosted a transition night, which was fantastic. So that was just another opportunity. We didn't plan that. We were invited, but I loved that because we could go in and it was just a kind of a smaller group where parents at that school could come and ask questions. We could talk about our school and what we offered. But at our school, we offer a parent interest night. And that interest night is for anyone who is interested. Parents can come and see what we have to offer, what our campus is like, kind of a snapshot of what the life of a freshman looks like. And then at the end of that, we host, if you're interested in the IB program, you can stay back and learn about the International Baccalaureate program. So we try to do different things where parents and students can ask questions. And then, of course, we put a lot of things on our website and encourage everybody to follow us on our social media because a lot of stuff is pushed out through our social media.
Talk about how much of a connection you like to see between parents and high school. It's different than elementary, it's different than middle school. How important is that aspect?
So I always tell parents, don't throw them in there and just let them go. Sometimes it seems like we want to because we're like, whew, it's been hard. Kindergarten through 8th grade, we've had to really keep our thumb on them. So do keep your thumb on them. You can lighten it up a little bit, but do, like, if you know that your student has struggled with anything in middle school, go ahead and schedule that parent conference like halfway through the first 9 weeks. Let's get everybody around the table. We are not scared to have a parent conference, and we get every teacher in there and myself and anybody else that needs to be a part of it. And we listen to the parents to say, and, listen to their concerns, what they're worried about. And then the teachers all get to share, like, this is how they're doing and this is what we're seeing. It's a really good way to learn about each of the teachers and their classrooms. And how they run things on a more personal level. So that's one thing I recommend. Use Schoology to look at those grades. We have a lot of parents who are a little nervous with technology, and I totally get it. But listen, you reach out to us. I will teach you how to use it. Our secretary is wonderful. She will teach you how to use it. But Schoology is really the best way to stay on top of looking at your students' grades. It is number one. And you can have it send reports to you every Sunday. We prefer you to be hands-on. And then as you see them get their footing, then you kind of start letting go a little bit. Still checking in on the grades. Don't quit checking on the grades. It is good, especially in that second semester, for them to get out there and really start advocating for themselves. And I do see it. I see growth as we move into that second semester where students are coming to me asking me lots of questions about 10th grade and dual enrollment and some of those next step things. And I love when the students come and advocate for themselves. But parents, yes, stay involved.
You mentioned a couple different areas, and I often hear this question, and I'm kind of asking myself this too. I'm sure it depends on the kid and the family situation, but say a kid is trying to pick between, do I take dual enrollment or do I take an AP class or do I take IB classes? How do you advise them on those different avenues?
It really does depend on the student and what your projection are. They all have perks. I mean, personally, my daughter did full blown IB all the way through. There were a lot of really great perks for her going into college, financially, academically, of course, but not all students love that. So we have students that do that. We have students that say, hey, I do like some of the IB courses, but I think like I don't love Spanish for 4 years, you know? So they may end up doing like part IB and then part dual enroll. I call it a la carting. It's like I'm going to take a high school English and I'm going to take IB math and IB social studies. And then I'm going to dual enroll in some of these things. It's very flexible and it is not set in stone. So like once you choose your plan, there's flexibility in that plan. So it's definitely something if parents have concerns about, we do sit down. I bring them in and sit them down to present all the options because what we find is there's a lot of misconceptions in the community for many reasons. You know, and everybody kind of talks to each other, but what is best for your student is not necessarily what is best for the student that didn't choose that path. So I highly recommend when there's questions to please just come to me or the counselor at the time or even administration to say, can we talk through these paths so we can make the best choice?
So correct me if this is not accurate, but what I heard was IB you have to apply for ahead of time and you get accepted. And then the AP is based off of your test score results and grades and things like that.
Unlike other IB programs, we're not as stringent and you do not have to take a test to see if you qualify to get in. If there are some students that miss that achievement level 3 on their reading by a couple points, it's a conversation with our AP of the IB program. And a lot of times we'll say, hey, let's give it a go. We're going to try it. But as far as we have standard track, we have IB track, and that AP track is built in right now to the IB track.
What about if a student's interested in taking some dual enrollment classes? Do you have a partnership with the community college in the area?
Yes, we do. So we partner with Polk State, Weber, Warner. We even have a few students that goes somewhere else with there's a parent working at another college. So it's all workable. We do have some requirements. So of course we want to make sure our freshmen know how to be freshmen in high school before we throw them into a college class. So there are some tests that they would have to qualify with to do dual enrollment. We really do like to see them have 6 completed credits or at least have by the time that semester starts 6 credits in place. And that again just kind of lets us know like, hey, they've grasped high school courses and they're doing well and we feel good about approving them into dual enrollment courses.
Advice wise, what do you like to tell kids as they're freshmen to keep an eye out for as they're going through their 4 years? What are some of those big hurdles that they need to make sure they have if they are expecting to walk down and get their diploma?
One of the biggest things I've noticed is a lot of times our brightest students, they haven't had to struggle. I mean, they could pass those tests. They don't even have to study for the tests. Well, high school is a little more higher stakes. And so, like getting that first B, and that sounds silly, but getting that first B or that first C, that is really hard for some of our students. And they kind of hit a wall and when they fall, I call it they fall in the hole and they get in this hole and they do not know how to get out of it. And that is a really big deal. So that is something we really try to work on with that organization and using our communication skills to say, okay, this has happened. It's okay. It's never happened before, but we're going to figure it out. It's not gloom and doom for you to cross that stage. But we need to stay on top of our 24 credits, checking them off. If we have a hiccup along the way, if we by chance, didn't earn a credit at this semester, like what is the best way to fix that? Are we going to sit in a classroom the next year? Are we going to try to fix it in summer school? Those are definitely things that we are having those conversations over the 4 years of when we're worried that something's not going right to get across that stage in 4 years. And then, of course, we want you not only to get across the stage, but we want you to be prepared for whatever is in your post-secondary life. Are you going out in the workforce? Are you going to community college? Are you going to trade school? Are you heading off to university? We want to make sure that, yes, you've got your 24 credits, but yes, you have a plan and you have a goal in mind.
So, how do you make that process doable for someone coming from a different school system, a homeschooler, maybe a private school? How do you streamline all that and get everyone on track?
First, we have to look at what they're coming to us with, course wise. If you're coming from homeschool, like, we're going to talk to you about what you're walking into the first day of school, what that's going to look like for you. As far as classes, of course, it's like what you have taken so far and placing you academically in what we feel like you are capable of doing. It really just depends on what scenario you're coming from. A lot of the co-op kind of homeschools, they're doing a lot of curriculum. So we get kids from a bunch of different kinds of private schools, and it really depends on what they're bringing to us on a transcript to determine what that's going to look like for them. But we definitely have the conversations with them and the parents of the courses that we're putting them into and making sure the parents are, okay with that. So
I always get questions on the application process. Sometimes a student might come from a middle school and think, I was in the charter middle school, I automatically have a place at the charter high school. What do they need to know about the open enrollment time and how to make sure that their name is in that high school pool to make sure that they continue on?
I would say definitely come to the interest meetings because our principal really goes through that detail of the charter. We do have to follow exactly what that charter says. And the original charter was written to keep our Lake Wells kiddos in the Lake Wells community. So, of course, the Lake Wells students are definitely the students that are going, when you apply, those are the students that are looked at first. After that, it's a lottery. I don't know all the specific details because I really don't do the enrollment, but I know when we go to the schools and talk about it, that if you are applying and you are coming from one of the feeder middle schools, that Lakewell residents are still looked at first with that. And outside of that, it depends on space and lottery. I'm not exactly sure for that, but they do go over that at our interest meetings. So it'd be really important to come to that. And a real common question is, if I apply to IB, should I also apply to the standard diploma ninth grade path? If you apply for IB and you are a Lake Wells resident and you happen not to get in, then you are then pushed over into the standard diploma track and you would be in that pool of Lake Wells students. I have heard them say if you are not a Lake Wells resident and you apply for IB, they would encourage you to apply for both. So you have an application for both on file. You have to apply. It's not automatic. If you have a sibling at the high school, yeah, that does work in your favor, but it's not an automatic. Every single prospective student has to fill out that application.
Within your career and within working in the Lake Wells community, what do you feel like is one of your biggest accomplishments in education?
I have to say, opening up a middle school with a group of people that I absolutely love was a chance of a lifetime. And going through that process I just learned so much. And we had a goal. We always kind of joke around. We started in our little planning group with a little stick figure guy. We have that little posters floating around here somewhere, a stick figure of like, what did we want for our students that's different from a traditional middle school? And we put all of our goals around it. And I'm going to tell you, we hit every one of them by building that school. And the fun we had and the community that we built was the biggest reward by far over 28 years of education that I would say is the biggest accomplishment. And of course, it wasn't a self accomplishment, it was a group accomplishment. Lake Wells is such a wonderful, small community. And it is wonderful that we know the teachers across all the schools, we know of each other, so I know that teachers in the elementary school are producing students in our charter system to deliver to the middle school with skills, and the middle schools are working on the things that they need to be ready for in high school in a sense. So I think just being in that small town and us knowing how the schools are running is just a perk for our charter system. You're not going to get that in a big school system.
What do you feel like is your teaching philosophy and more leadership now? But what is that driving force within you?
I do think in education, I think whatever position you're in, building relationships are number one. Some of the students we get at the high school and even in middle school, when they're coming to us and they're really struggling, I truly believe there's one person out there in that school that can make that connection with the student. So always trying to build the relationships and making those connections. And if you're not feeling the connection, finding the person, well, who can I find to build that relationship with the student? Because it only takes one person, mentor, teacher, staff member to make a little tiny connection. We see it all the time, and they just do a 180 and they get through high school and flourish and do wonderful things. So building relationships to me is my number one.
So, what is one of the biggest challenges that you see students face?
So I think in high school, one of the things that we see a lot is attendance and the effects of attendance on grades. If a student is failing courses, the number one reason a student is failing courses is because of attendance. In high school, due to our schedule, it's hard to make up stuff, and we do offer times that students can make up things, but attendance is so critical. They have to have that seat time. The state of Florida says you must have this seat time. So prior to high school, if you missed, yeah, those days added up, but it's significant for success in high school. In regards to grades, it's the law. You can lose your driver's license. If you have one, you could get your driver's license. So the repercussions of not coming to school in high school are huge.
So, high school student sometimes can drive, sometimes can't, it's beyond
Right.
their power. How do you bridge that gap and say, you know what, let me help you with your school bus stop schedule. Let me make sure you're here. Like, what are the resources to make sure a kid who may be kind of autonomous, but not really yet, how do you help them?
We have a whole department at our high school, which is fantastic. So we have someone behind the scenes definitely tracking attendance. Our teachers are really good at saying, hey, the student hasn't been here. Can you look into it? So between the counselors and our attendance manager and even administration, our sit department, we send people out, we go to homes, they establish what is the reason and what's the barrier for not getting to school. Is it true illness? Is it sometimes it's busing that they live too close to school and they don't have the busing to get there, and it's just getting from that 2 mile mark to school. Maybe they live way out and the bus picks them up really early in the morning. So we really have a great team and procedures in place to identify what the barriers are to get them to school. And then if it's something that truly is in the control of the parent and student, we do put them on contracts.
Do you ever find students that say, oh my gosh, I just don't think this is for me? And then do you have options, other options for them, like an alternative education, a non traditional school, or something like that?
Yeah, so we definitely, again, we're looking at credits, we're looking at home life, and if traditional charter high school is not working for them, we do look into the other options based on what we know that they want to do, where they live, what parents are willing to do to help make that transition happen. There's a lot of things, a lot of details that we have to look at to determine that. But our ultimate goal is to keep them at our high school. So we want them there, and we have so many teams in place that give that extra support to get them there. We do try to keep them with us. That's our goal.
So as long as a student says, hey, what do I do? You're able to say, here's your options.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. What do you see yourself doing in the next 5-ish years within your career?
I am really happy doing what I'm doing. I think eventually I would like to move into like a career counseling position at a college. I wouldn't go to, you're not going to go far. Yeah, I'm a small town girl. But to do some career counseling in somehow, some way is something where I kind of wanted to end my career. And then maybe just be a paraprofessional at elementary school somewhere sounds really great too.
So what do you love most about your job on a daily basis?
The people I work with, we have a really strong group in our student services so that loving the people you work with is great. But having that plan to meet with students throughout the day, helping them problem solve, having those relationships of just going to working with the students. That's the biggest thing. That's what my drive is to help them through whatever the day brings. Like, do we need to do a schedule change? Do we need to talk about your next steps? I live for helping them do the next thing. I mean, I love it.
What advice do you have to somebody who's thinking about getting into education as a career, like a college age person? What would you tell them and why should they do it?
If if your passion is helping students learn, watching them make their gains, and you're not looking at a paycheck, it is not a paycheck. It's truly your reward of seeing them grow, and you have to be good with that. So you're going to work, you're going to work past the hours, you're going to work some nights, and that's okay because everything that you are working towards is helping a population that is our future. So, and it's so wonderful watching them. You have to be good with those moments and not look at that paycheck. Hopefully, that gets better over the years as we move forward because educators definitely deserve it, but the reward is truly the student.
What else do we need to know as an outsider?
I just have to brag. Our high school is doing amazing things. Our data is just off the charts. We have an amazing principal that digs deep in this data and just really throws it out there to parents of like, this is what we're doing and this is how we're comparing to other high schools. And I truly believe that is a combination of wonderful teachers, of course, a lot of people like us behind the scenes that are just trying to make sure we're keeping these students going and motivated, creating an atmosphere again at our school that is promoting community and giving students a lot of options with clubs and extracurricular activities. Our sports are phenomenal. Like we have won a lot of championships with our sports. We just altogether that our school has a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. A high school with as big as ours, there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that maybe parents don't know, but I can promise you 110% that everybody's working really hard to make it great.
How do you get someone interested in community service? How is it important? And what does it mean to you? Like you're very community service involved.
First of all, it is not a graduation requirement, so you can walk across that stage with zero community service hours. However, we really push students to have community service. If you are college bound, if you are wanting to get some scholarships, community service is always a part of that. We start in ninth grade. When I go into those classrooms, we talk about the procedures that we use at the high school to get going on community service. We talk about places and Lake Wells, Winter Haven community that they can go to because it must be for a not-for-profit. We talk about the new component with Bright Futures. So, Bright Futures has a bunch of different levels. So, the top level, you need 100 hours. So, now Bright Futures does allow you to log paid hours separately from community service hours, thinking like, hey, there are some kids that have to get out there and work. So they're not able to get out there and do as much service as maybe some other students. So Bright Futures does accept paid hours. They're separately logged, but they still calculate towards their 100. It builds character for the students and it really teaches them, it opens their eyes to a lot of things that are going on in our community that maybe otherwise they wouldn't see. And even students that are maybe going right out there in the workplace, it's a beautiful thing to put on a work resume to say you went through high school and did 100 community service and what you can write on that resume in regards to those experiences. Jobs love that. So they want to know that you were that responsible kid to finish high school, in addition, give back to your community.
So, advice to a freshman, somebody that you're working closely with, what advice do you have to tell them, like, this is how you can stand out? How do you find that thing that's going to make you stand out?
You can have a 4.7 GPA, but whatever you're going to do, you need to be well rounded. I mean, you want to be involved, you want to be in clubs that you are interested in, because when you list those clubs for whatever you're doing next, that kind of shows them what your personality is like. If you're involved, they know, colleges know that, hey, we're putting stock in this student who is not only our 3.5 GPA, but they have all these other things going for them. So we want, colleges, especially now, they're kind of moving towards, it's not just a test score. It's like, let's look at this student's college resume, and they really want to see a well-rounded kid.
Well, thank you, Leanne, for spending some time with us on EduCurious. I learned a lot. I appreciate you being on the show.
Well,
So,
thank you again.
thank you. And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We'll see you next time.